Hello everybody, my name is Mike Snow and welcome back to the Dark Souls 1 Barbarian build. I am back here in the depths at the site of my ignoble defeat at the hands of that slow invader. And I'm going to be beginning and ending this episode in the depths. However, the middle part of the episode is actually going to be in the catacombs because I don't know. That's one of the great things about this game is you can go and wander wherever the heck it is that you want. I'm still using the +5 large club here, but when I go to the catacombs, I'm going to be switching that out for another weapon. We have another one of these butcher ladies up here. It's a fun little trap that they've set up for you. And I wanted to start this by talking about something that I really enjoy in this game, which is realistic weapons. Now, it's strange talking about this with this weapon. I outside of illustrations of Hercules, I don't think I've ever seen anyone using a club in history of this size. You know, it's usually going to be just a sort of like a hand mace or something like that. It's not going to be this titanic. But Dark Souls is kind of unique in that they have a lot of more realistic weaponry. In other games, using this, the swords and the axes and everything, they just seem too elaborate and too ridiculous. And, especially in a lot of Japanese games, they can look completely absurd, like in a standard JRPG. But I like in this game that you can use, if you want to, just basic weapons, just a regular and everyday mace that looks like it's of a normal size. Or a sword that looks like it actually is the same size that someone in real life would use. I think I was able to one-shot this guy with this jumping attack. Yes, I was. He has an axe right in his face there. I should have shown that a little bit more. I'm just going to go kill Kirk, but I love the fact that they mix together some fantasy weapons in it, but I think that's how I like the game best. I like the game to have some ridiculous-looking fantasy weapons, but most of the time, I think it really should just be the regular weapons like you actually were in the Middle Ages. This is another little problem with the big weapons. I clearly missed there. I'm sure that someone who's a little better than I could have gotten that, but there is, I certainly did not. Ugh, these pimple things down here are disgusting. I don't like that there's like a little rat there, and then the big ones are over here. I'm just going to go kill Kirk, and then I'm going to pop over and make a cut to the catacombs. Kirk goes down pretty hard here, and I get to use the two-handed R2 attack with this one. The depths is kind of an area that feels sort of... It's very well designed. I like the layout of the depths. I think it looks cool, too. But I just had this feeling that it was... It's just not a great area of the game. Maybe because there's not all that much that's useful down here. Or I'm not exactly. I mean, it is just a sewer level, and it has been pointed out that the sewer level in many games is actually the crummiest level and the laziest level that you can get to. So maybe it's kind of like that with me. I don't know, but I really just don't care for it too much. And I'm just going to go grab the Great Axe, which is another weapon. I'm pretty sure I'm going to use the Great Axe +10 against Quelaag in a later episode. This little nest of rats here is a great place to come to get humanity. Now, I have an absurd amount of humanity, 8, because I've been farming, so I actually got quite a few drops. I'm not too sure if there was ever any weapon like the Great Axe. I'm pretty sure that there really wasn't, but I'm going to cut here in just a sec. Be back in a sec. Okay, everybody, I'm back. And as I was saying, I don't know if there's really anything that resembles the Great Axe in world history. I mean, I know that there were giant halberds and battle axes, I guess. The real battle axes tended to be small, and as much as I might like it to have existed, I don't really think that there was anything like the actual, like the Great Axe, this titanic mass of iron. Unlike the Zweihander, which is real. So that is a weapon that's not exactly realistic. I don't know if I can use it yet with my present strength. And, just exercising here, one of the great aspects of this game is that we can wander wherever we want. If we get bored with the depths, guess what? You are not stuck in the depths. If you get bored with a mission in Mass Effect, you can't just like, fuck this and leave. You can't do that. You have to stay there and fight. And you have to power through that level, even if it's getting dull to you, which is not very fun. I mean, they do give you a fair amount of freedom in Mass Effect. I'm not saying it's nothing, and I do like the Mass Effect series, but it's not like this or Symphony of the Night where you can just wander away wherever you want. There's no compelling you to go anywhere. And that guy died. He did not resurrect, and the reason is that I was able to upgrade this +5 Zweihander to a Divine Zweihander. And I did that. It just cost 1 green Titanite and killing the Moonlight Butterfly, which is really, really nothing. I mean, that's almost, you know, that's barely, that's like spending 50 cents in the real world. It's really nothing for you. And you can get a green Titanite shard pretty quickly down in Blighttown. So it's easy to do. And the Moonlight Butterfly is not a tough boss. I love this mound of bone here. I heard from someone online somewhere that they speculated that bones are still a conduit for souls, and I don't actually know where he was getting that information, if it was from an item description or something, because I was trying to remember if that's where it was, like the description of the, I don't know, Gravelord sword or something like that. But I couldn't really remember, but I think that may be why the skeletons can be animated, because weirdly enough, they're still capable of being like a catalyst for life energy somehow, even though it's mindless life energy. And I'm just checking here to see if I have any alluring skulls or any firebombs, but because I don't, and I'm glad I don't, because I really wanted to do this. I'm not going to use a bow for this run, even during the tough times when I really probably should be using a bow. I'm going to keep my dexterity very low. It's at 10 right now, I believe. And there are the bugs. I always have to look at the bugs running through here. I don't know how they survive down here. Is there any flesh for them to eat off of these bones? It doesn't look like it. But the Catacombs is a really fun area. I mentioned this before in the last episode with New Londo Ruins, but I just love games where they allow you, that was their parry stance, by the way, that's why I did jumping attacks, but I love games where they allow you to choose to go through a very tough area using your own skill, rather than mitigating it. And really, I'm not even completely mitigating the difficulty of this area, because I am using a divine weapon, but I'm going through it. I tend to go through this area much earlier on nowadays. After a nightmarish time through it during my first playthrough, that guy fell. I really, for the next 6 months of playthroughs, I was really just tired and worried about going through this area, so I waited usually until I got all the way up to Ornstein and Smo before going down here. But recently, because it's such a challenging area, and I'm looking for the game to challenge me more and more when it's kind of not really capable of doing that, it's possible, I wonder if you can use alluring skulls to get that archer guy down here. But I'm not sure about that. He's moved back, the little coward. And I usually wait. I usually don't wait to go through this area and go through it fairly early, because it is a very difficult area to do early on without a divine weapon. But because I have a divine weapon, it's making it not as challenging as it could be. That Necromancer guy, by the way, if you can bum rush him by running right through here, good luck, because he charges out of here very quickly. He dashes all the way to the back, and he's like a Parthian archer. He's constantly retreating but firing at you as you retreat. It's horrifying. He's very challenging. And he can run all the way up to the top area there near the bridge. He can run I don't know if you can run past that, because I've always gotten him up there, but usually you can, usually he'll run all the way up there. Anyway, this guy, he has quite a bit of health. He has over 400 health if it took that much to kill him. So if you have like a light weapon, I don't know how you're going to do about it. But I like the way the catacombs look. I think they look very interesting. I love the texture of the ground here. I love all of these crumbling old statues. And I know the game is filled with crumbling old statues, but they look especially cool here. And the lighting is amazing. It's perfect that there's a low light every now and again from, say, from these little candles in front of some of the tombs. But there's also like a little face almost up in the sky. I didn't actually show it, but it's shining light down onto here. I really love the way that's done. It looks fantastic. Overall, though, if you know exactly where to go and what to do, as with most games, it's still not terribly challenging. And the rolling attacks that these guys do are nothing compared to the rolling attacks of the big skeletons in the Shrine of Storms in Demon's Souls. That's a whole different kettle of fish. I really don't like these exploding skull dudes here. I don't really think they add very much, and you can't actually hit them. And there's a third one. I thought there was a third one, but because I didn't see anything, I just ran without thinking about it. But he's actually hiding right behind that statue there, see? So things sort of go badly, and I almost die here. But fortunately, I managed to recover with some rolling, which is, exactly what you should do in Dark Souls. But I don't really like those kamikaze skull guys. Those guys really took their time getting back towards me, didn't they? That's kind of lucky, actually. I know skeletons are overused enemies in fantasy games, but I still love seeing them because I've never gotten over the coolness of the Jason and the Argonauts skeleton scene. One of the formative moments in all of oh, there's Patches. Hi, Patches. I'm gonna kill you, you bold-headed prick. But the skeleton scene in Jason and the Argonauts was a formative moment in the history of fantasy, the fantasy genre of any kind, film, TV. It's probably influenced video games as well quite a bit. So I don't necessarily mind fighting some spooky, scary skeletons, especially if it's sort of in a really cool-looking area. Now, this area, I usually lure these guys out with arrows, but you can dodge this flame, by the way, as you just saw there, so it's not all that dangerous. You just have to be aware of it more than the skeletons, and just lure them back here like this. There's not a whole lot of point to doing this. It's just, I wanted to play without using a bow and arrow and mitigating the difficulty because of it. So there you are, from here, and it's weird that these guys, it's still weird that these guys can be backstabbed, because, undead should not be subject to the crit damage of sneak attacks. I know I'm a nerd, but whatever. That almost looked like there was a fog wall over that door for a second. I am alive. I got worried there for a minute. But, yeah, that fire... I wish that you could do the fire attack from, with these skull lanterns. And because I have such a titanic amount of humanity, I have a very high item... not item burden, a very item discovery rate, so I managed to get a skull lantern. Not that it's super necessary, especially if you know where you're going, but if you don't, it could be very useful. But I really wish you could make the skull lantern into a fire damage weapon. That would be a great, that would be an amazing build if you could do that with, for a pyromancer. You have the pyromancy flame in your right hand, and in your left hand you have a skull lantern that you can hit people with, and it actually would do decent amounts of fire damage. There we go. Curses! What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You're murdering people in the catacomb, prick. But I think that would be a great little addition to the game if you can go get a skull lantern for your pyromancy build early on. That would be a lot of fun. That would make the pyromancy, that would mitigate the danger of the pyromancy, because it's very powerful. That would mitigate its danger because, what do I say mitigate its danger? That would make it more challenging for you if you didn't use a shield. Bye-bye, Patches, bye-bye. And we just got the Crescent Axe, and if you're a faith build, it is a bit criminal not to use the stereotypical mace. I mean, obviously you'd want to use that, but you may also want to come down here and grab the Crescent Axe and use all those twinkling titanites that you can get in the Great Hollow, and you can make a very powerful weapon very early on. They really, really skimped on the divine weapons in this game. There are very few weapons of the divine category specifically for a faith build. Now, obviously, you can make any weapon or not any, but most weapons you want divine, but there's just not enough for making a decent... There's like, what, 5 with a natural divine bonus to it? Or something like that? I like that you can use this light down here, the skull lantern, to illuminate this. You're tempted to go for that first bulge, but that's just a trick, and I died many, many, many times trying to figure this out in my early playthroughs. And it really... It's not fun. I don't like that. I like that this is so super hidden, but I love this cutscene. I'm just going to let it play out. I like that it's very hidden, you know, like a real old-fashioned, like you could never find this kind of way. But I don't like that it's so hard to leap down into it. Now this guy has weird beard locks on him, just like the skull lantern says something about beard locks. And I don't understand how you can have like a bone-like beard. Was he had some sort of tentacle head? But squids don't really have bones in those tentacles, so I don't really understand that. But anyway, the reason that we came down here to the catacombs at all is to talk to our good friend Vamos. And unfortunately, we are going to be murdering Vamos because he has a rather amazing helm that you could never know he has because he's not wearing it. It looks very peculiar. You should be able to buy fire arrows here. That annoys me that you can't. And now, unfortunately, we're going to have to kill Vamos. And he uses... Weirdly enough, he does not use his hammer. He uses a pickaxe. I wouldn't mind if he dropped that pickaxe. And look at that spin! He's like Brian Boitano up in this piece. Jesus. I can't believe that. He's using that spin. But the helm that he has, the helm of Vamos, is one of the most... You know, it's just like him. It's one of the most curious weapons in the game. Because... what in the heck does this mean? Helm of Vamos, skeleton blacksmith of the catacombs, partially made of gold that confers high resistance overall. The helm is believed to belong to an ancient royal line, but only Vamos would know. And we just killed him, and he's not gonna tell any tales after we murdered this guy. What exactly was Vamos, and what his helm means, and what the royal line was, and we can fast roll with it as long as we take the skull lantern off, which is nice. I have no idea, because they tell you virtually nothing about Vamos, unless there are some really wild, out-there theories about what he could be that I haven't heard. Nobody really knows anything, and that's okay. There should be some mysteries in life, you know? Not everything should be explicable all the time. And I think since I'm down here in the catacombs, I'm just going to have to go down and kill Pinwheel. Now, I am going to be bringing Paladin Leroy with me, and it occurs to me when I was playing this, do you need to summon Paladin Leroy here in order to get him to appear later? Because he's not really necessary to summon, and I was going to go through most of the game without summoning any help, but I decided to summon Leroy here just in case, because I'd forgotten whether you really... That's another stipulation of this playthrough I think I probably mentioned already, that I'm not going to be using summons for most of the boss fights. But, well, you know what? No, I'll bring Solaire in for the for another boss fight later. I think I'm going to do that. But I'm not going to be using it for, like, Ornstein and Smo, or the Gargoyles, or Quelaag. But I will bring... I like Solaire, so I'm going to bring him into to one later. Anyway. And I wanted to summon Leroy here because I'm just not too certain about whether you need to summon him. I'll try to put that up on the screen if I go look that up. But anyway, I love the way this looks. It is a giant sarcophagus. And it's filled with little sarcophagi, so that's an interesting design that they put right there. And Paladin Leroy is brought in here because I'm trying to push Leroy in here. But I found out you can't. As far as I know, you can't kick him in first. I thought that would be interesting if you could do that. But the reason that Paladin Leroy came down here is because the clerics of the Way of White are trying to hunt down the Rite of Kindling, which allows you to kindle bonfires more. This is a little bit peculiar, because, one, why is the Way of White, the Way of Gwyn, so enmeshed with Death and Nito, who is a separate lord, who's supposed to be Lord Gwyn's inferior? You know, I mean, why would they do that? Why would they be so interested in the Way of Light with really with the Way of Death and the Death? I'm going to say the Death Soul, but I'll talk about that later when I find Nito. And I almost died there to Pinwheel. I can't believe that. But Pinwheel here is not a very interesting boss, but the lore around this area is very good, because why is Leroy coming down here? Why are the Way of Light trying to get this Rite of Kindling? Because the Rite of Kindling, remember, in order to kindle a bonfire, you need humanity from other people. That doesn't sound like a very religious or holy thing to do, because where are you going to get the humanity? You obviously need humanity from somewhere to kindle the bonfire, and they want to be able to kindle bonfires even more? That's very, very strange that they would be attempting to come down here to get this right. But anyway, I just found that to be very interesting, that the Way of Light is actually, is in fact so enmeshed with death. And apparently has some relationship to the Dark Soul, of course, because the Rite of Kindling that they want needs the Dark Soul in humanity to kindle things. But anyway, I'm going to bone out of here in just a little bit. I could try to run down into the lower part of this area, but there's not really any need. And so I'm just going to pop back up. Okay, and we're back here in the depths to conclude this episode. I like looking like a stereotypical barbarian, a Wagnerian barbarian, because really the modern conception of barbarians in fantasy fiction is based on the 19th century romantic era version of a vision of barbarians and Wagnerian operas and other things. So too is a lot of the medieval fantasy fiction has its roots there, which is fine. A lot of people reject that, but I think that romantic medievalism in 19th century Europe is fantastic, because it gave us so much about fantasy fiction. And I am bringing in Solaire here because I'm going to be doing this fight a little bit more challenging than usual, because you may have noticed I did not, when I was here previously, kill the channeler that was above this room. I went in there, and I'm going to go in here, and the channeler, that sorcerer enemy who we find in the Undead Parish, he's going to be up there shooting down soul arrows at us as we fight. This is another great example of what's been called in the community natural difficulty. That is that the game allows you to choose how difficult it is, and I like that there's a little break in the wall back there that allows lighting and explains why there's so we can still see things. It's not pitch dark in here. This enemy is a really cool design with these really nasty, like, moving rib cages. It's almost like he can control the movement of his own broken rib cage. It's really disturbing. We also came down here not just to show that little extra way to do this section, but I also wanted to show, with the channeler shooting down at you, I also wanted to show us getting one of the weapons that we're going to be using in this playthrough. At some point, I think it's called the Stone Great Axe? No, something like that. We'll see in a minute. The Dragon King Great Axe, that must be it. And I don't know why his tail gives you that, but Dragon King Great Axe. This is one of the most ridiculous weapons of the game, because it requires 50 strength to one hand, so we ain't one-handed this thing, I can tell you that. We're definitely going to be two-handing that. We're not going to be getting up to 50 strength. Strong barbarian though we are. And you might want to just cut off his tail anyway. I forgot about this. He bumped into me with the end of his tail, and it looked like it counted as a tail swing strike. Which is total BS. Because cutting off his tail should eliminate, you can see the soul arrows coming down here, that should eliminate him using that maneuver on us, if you cut off his tail. But, sort of like it does with Calamy. But anyway, I guess we'll just have to endure it. I bumped my Zweihander up to +10, by the way. I did that in order to make this fight a little easier, and also to be able to get the tail cut that I want. Once again, we have the disgusting little nasty grubby tail, and we would have been hit by that tail strike, but of course his tail is gone, so maybe there is some point to it. This was more challenging in my mind with that channeler hitting us, but really it's not doing much damage. We have, we have a helmet essentially on. That's really it in terms of armor, and he's still not. Hi there, channeler. Hey, what's going on? You failed. And we really just have like the helmet we're wearing on, and that's basically it. So that obviously doesn't do very much damage. It must be like a basic soul arrow or something like that. Well, that wraps up this episode. We had to do some stuff in the catacombs, really just for our look. As I've said before, the one thing you have to do in the Souls game is look good. If you got that down, you're on your way to success. But I think I'm just about done here. And, yeah, look at this. It looks so ridiculous. This is a weapon that is clearly not based on anything in reality. It looks so absurd. I mean, it's gigantic. It looks like it's made of stone, like a bone, like a stone, like the dragon's own bones made, or it's made out of the stone scales of the ancient dragons. It just looks so bizarre and weird looking. And this is the Hammer of Vamos. This is actually a pretty decent looking in terms of size maul. I mean, maybe it's a little bit too big, but I really think that this could be like a normal. If they added hammers or mauls into the game, that would have been nice. I think that would have been fine. It does a mixture of fire and physical damage, and it's honestly not that good. But I will see you next time when we go to take on the Bell Gargoyles. Have a good night.